Hey y'all, I'm Kat and I'm an alcoholic.
Yes.
My sobriety date is April 16th of this year. I clearly have a sponsor. I have a home group. I do service there. I do service here with Intergroup and Night Watch. And I share all of that because those are all the things that I was told to do. And so I'm doing them. April 16th is not my first sobriety date. It's not my second. I don't think it's even maybe my 10th. I first found out that I had a problem with alcohol in November of 2020, the height of the pandemic. And I think very similarly to a lot of the other stories that I have heard since coming into the rooms, my journey as the protagonist of this story had like a very nice arc, right? I found alcohol and it was great. And like I felt more outgoing and I could talk to people and I could be social and I used it for that. And then I found out that I could apply it to everything in my life. Like I got a paper cut and I could get drunk over it. And that was, as I got into my 30s, it really was using it as a crutch for like any mild inconvenience in my life, to celebrate things in my life. It didn't matter what it was, alcohol could be applied to it and was applied to it. But in my late 30s, maybe a year or two before the pandemic hit, it became the only way that I could get out of bed in the morning and the thing that took me back to bed in the afternoon. And I would have to get up in the middle of the night to take shots. And in the morning, I would have to do shots in order to throw up just so that I could drink the amount that I wanted to in the morning. And of course, the pandemic was a huge way for me to be able to drink the way that not I wanted to, the way that I thought I needed to. Because at that point, I was so convinced that like the bottom of this bottle of bourbon is going to have the answer that it used to have. Because all of my answers used to be in this bottle. And I'm pretty sure one of these is going to be the unlock. If I can just drink more of it or drink less of it or drink it, in this way or in that way, like I'm going to figure this out again. And like, spoiler alert, that didn't work. But it was in late 2020 when it just got so out of control that I was having physical issues and my mental health, like I was trying to use it to control the anxiety and depression that it was giving me, and self-medicating while telling a psychiatrist that I didn't drink, might have been like the first indication that I had a drinking problem, if I had any understanding of what a disease of the mind, body, and spirit actually was, but I didn't. And so I ended up in the emergency room with a 0.475 alcohol content in my blood, and they were convinced I was trying to commit suicide. And so they sent me to a psychiatric facility because I couldn't really say that I wasn't trying to, like, it wasn't conscious of that's what I want. What I wanted was to escape my reality. And if that meant that reality no longer existed, I think I had gotten to the place where I was okay with that because I just couldn't manage, right? My life had become unmanageable, but I was still desperately trying to like just claw my way through it. And through my time in that psychiatric facility was the first time that someone looked at me and said, I think you have a problem with alcohol. And I was like shocked. This is entirely new news to me. And she was trying really hard to convince me to go to a treatment center. And she kept talking about how it's only 28 days. It was only 28 days. And to me, I was like, yeah, I've quit drinking for that long before. It had been like 5 or 6 years at that point, but I was like, yeah, that's not the problem. What 28 days did mean to me was that gave me 28 days to figure out how to lie, manipulate, and play the victim. Because those were things, my character defects, that I didn't know what those were called yet, that I had become really accustomed to using. And so I had 28 days to figure out how the hell I was going to get out of this one, right? The fight that had led to my friend coming and picking me up and taking me to the emergency room with my husband, the job that I had dialed into that morning, hammered, all of those pieces, like I was sure 28 days was going to help me figure it out. What it did help me figure out is that I'm an alcoholic. And I actually came to believe that and understand it for something that I just had no awareness before. And so I started doing the things that they told me to do, finding the similarities in the rooms, and really paying attention when we read the doctor's opinion. And I felt like I was understanding myself in a new way. So rather than moving back home, I did go to a sober living house for a few months before going back to the home that my husband and I owned. And I started working with a sponsor right away and working the steps and like doing all of the things. I got service positions, I got a home group, everything was online, but I didn't know any different, right? That was AA to me, and I was all in on that. But I told you that like today isn't my first sobriety day, so like there's another arc of this story coming, and when I got to my fourth step, like I wrote a searching and fearless moral inventory to the best of my ability in that moment. And I was honest with someone during my fifth step in a way I had never been. Like I would tell you that my eyes were purple. And I probably would have convinced you of it too, because lying was just so ingrained in my life. And, but I did the best that I could, and I shared things that I thought for sure I would take to my grave. And I learned a lot about how my relationship with alcohol had led to many decisions in my life that I maybe wouldn't have made in that moment sitting in that living room with my sponsor at that time. And through my ninth step, I got to clean up some of my side of the street. But I got out of treatment on just to like backstep. I got out of treatment on January 1st of 2021. I started my job back up on January 3rd. I have a great job. I work in corporate America. It's awesome. I genuinely love it too much. And when I moved back in with my husband, we like life just resumed, right? And so I was putting all of this work into trying to learn my higher power and understand my disease and my character defects and make amends and all of this as it applied to my alcoholism. I was like, yes, I believe there's something bigger than me, and he can have my alcoholism, but I don't really want you coming to work with me. And I'm not really sure I want you in my marriage. And some of my relationships, like you can have half of my relationship with my mom. Like I didn't realize it at the time, but I was negotiating my way through life with my higher power of where it could and could not apply. And that meant that my sobriety was not my number one priority. And for 3.5 years, I became a GSR of my home group. I was doing a lot of district service. And I had sponsees whom I adored and spent a lot of time working with them on their program. But there was still this piece of me that wasn't being honest with myself or my sponsor or my higher power that I wasn't willing to let go of yet. And that was the yet that led to many other yets. And so most of 2024 and into the beginning of 2025, I spent on this like revolving door of relapses. And the good news is I knew about AA. I understood that I was an alcoholic. I knew that these rooms were here. And so I would fall flat on my face and then for 3 days. And then I would like drag myself up by my bootstraps and come back into the rooms. And the blessing is that you all were here waiting with open arms to say, yep, come back in. But it took the moment of like absolute clarity was I had gotten a new sponsor, and we had had some really good conversations that were making me think about things a little bit differently, thinking about how I tapped into my higher power a little bit differently. I had gone down and spent some time in New Orleans with my sister, gotten a little separation from the chaos that I had created again in my life. And I had come back to Seattle, and y'all, I just kept drinking because that was still what I knew how to do. And it took literally drinking to the point of I walked into my bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. There was like, I had probably lost like 15 pounds in the last like 2 weeks of just drinking myself stupid. And my hair was a mess and it was really long at that time. There was like vomit just dripping out of one side and I was gray. And I was like, I'm going to kill myself. And that wasn't a good thing anymore. I had moved into a different space where it no longer was a relief from this world. It was the scariest effing moment of my life. And the withdrawals that night of April 15th, I thought were going to kill me. I have withdrawn from much harder substances than alcohol in my lifetime. And that April 16th was the day that I was like, I'm willing. I'm willing. And so I almost left my job. I almost hit the like abort button and said, I can't work in a career that is my whole world. And then I can't live in a city where my now ex-husband is so present in my life, because those are two things that I don't know how to manage on my own. And it took weeks before I was able to look at it objectively of how I could build a life here. Because regardless of whether I was here or I left, the fact of the matter was that I was going to have to go really deep. I was going to have to peel back many more layers of that onion. But for the first time, I was willing to give up anything in my life, whatever it took to stay upright, alive, and free. I didn't want to be, I'd never felt so trapped as that moment looking in that mirror of like, this disease fucking owns me again. And I just want to be free of it. And like, I'm fortunate that I was able to stay here with the tribe that I created around myself with this fellowship, but not a day passes in which sobriety is anything less than my number one priority, because it is the only thing that's going to keep me alive. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to get back into these rooms and get this like deeper understanding of my higher power and where I need that higher power, which is everywhere, in order to get an opportunity to live free. And that's it.